Welcome to episode 240 of The Center Ring, and you're in luck because this is going to be the best episode ever as we have the second documentary in our esports documentary watching party series, whatever you want to call it, as we recap Gamers, a documentary. So hopefully you did your homework. If not, just listen anyways or skip the first part and then come back and listen again so you can know what we're talking about. That's how that works. And we're also going to do a little what if. What if the Rio Major never was canceled or postponed? Excuse me. Nothing's canceled yet, Anuj. They're not canceling it yet.
Not yet.
Slip of the tongue. A little slip of the tongue. What if the Rio Major was never delayed? What would be the landscape that we're looking at? So we'll discuss that as well. And of course, some e-news to top it all off. But before we get to any of that, let's tell you about the show sponsor, Alt. AltEsports.com should be your one-stop destination for the best esports apparel that this universe has to offer. I don't know if you saw the news, but NASA discovered a parallel universe. Well, guess what? In that parallel universe, Alt is still the number one esports apparel attire. That's even when everything is backwards, Alt stays the same. You can't change Alt. And I'm saying this even before they're paying me to say it. So you know you can trust us. I have a closet full of their attire. Anuj has a closet full of their attire. You can go there right now and buy yourself a 101 Burglars hoodie, which is our line with them. More to come on that as well. But check it out, altesports.com.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Ron Rambo Kim, and you are listening to The Center Ring.
Okay, so let's start.
What is up, everybody? And welcome back to another edition of The Center Ring, aka TCR, aka your favorite esports podcast. This is episode 240, coming to you live and or pre-recorded from an undisclosed location. Follow us on Twitter at The Center Ring if you're not doing so already. Our website, tcr.gg, has all the other links, including Discord, YouTube. Subscribe to that if you're not doing so. You can see our beautiful faces on YouTube. Also, we typically post interviews up there before they actually hit the show. So if you ever are like just itching for some interviews, we have a caseload of them on our YouTube. So go check that out. It's just youtube.com/thecenterring. So there's that for you. Also, our website, tcr.gg, has a link there. Hello, my name is Tim. I'll be your host for this journey into esports, but alongside me, as always, is my best friend, my brown friend. It's Anuj. What's up?
I'm not doing well, buddy.
This is a tough one.
Not doing well. This should be a DreamHack survival guide episode.
Our annual DreamHack survival guide. Every year, the episode or two before DreamHack, we just spend an hour and a half just kind of for ourselves, really.
Yeah.
I mean, we have listeners, and they we have tons of listeners that go to DreamHack events, and we always meet up with them when we can. But it's also just kind of a checklist for us. Like, all right, we got to amp up ourselves. Remember what we got to do.
It's like the hype episode leading into it. It's the pep rally for the game, you know?
The very first time we did one of those DreamHack survival guide episodes, one of our listeners, it was a husband and wife couple, messaged me saying, thank you so much for doing it. It was our first time going not only to like an event like that, to a LAN party, of that size, but to Austin, because it was back when it was in Austin in general. And they were like, we loved it. We listened on our way down and definitely prepared us. So I was like, damn, that makes me feel a little good.
And here we are this weekend. No major, no DreamHack.
Not a chance. And it is a little hollow feeling. Now, we discussed it in the pre-show meeting. A responsible adult, Anuj, would have recalled his PTO at work. A responsible adult would have been like, you know what? I'm no longer going on this trip. I should save the days and just not take them. But I'm not a responsible adult, so I have like the next week off, and I have no regrets.
You took it in mourning, Tim, and I
None.
understand that.
It's gonna suck. What's going to suck the most about this is our wives will not understand.
No.
They won't understand that this was supposed to be our weekend.
You think you're taking time off this week to play games, Tim?
No,
You're sadly mistaken,
definitely
my
not.
friend.
I already have a list of things I have to do from the wife, but I am going to take the nights. The nights will belong to the boys. Much like Saturdays are for the boys, the nights are for the boys.
There you go.
Because but they don't understand. They don't understand that, like, I'm really not supposed to even remember you exist right now. By Friday night, I'd be 3 free Monster energy drinks in and just slaying it in some Counter-Strike tournament that they're going to tell us was fake the whole time.
I was looking forward to being sick on Monday morning, you know? Like having a little bit of the sniffles, maybe an itchy throat at that point. Like I know I'd had a good weekend.
Now, I do have that because allergy season has hit Texas, as you just saw me sneeze with my mic mute. It's already hit me. It's ridiculous. I'm almost happy in that sense, but yeah, no, it sucks. It sucks. Not only do we not have DreamHack, we don't have the major, so much, and now, well, we'll save it for when we talk to the major about the major, because I've heard some bad news about Brazil, so not looking good. Not looking good, Anuj. Seems like we were pretty optimistic with not hearing news from Brazil, but it was almost like they just weren't telling people, and now it's kind of difficult to hide. So not good news coming from our brothers in Brazil. So we'll talk about that. But first, let's get into the, what do you want to call it? I guess a documentary watching party. That sounds good.
Our docuseries.
Our docuseries, yes, where we are picking maybe one a month, whenever it seems right. There's really no schedule to this, but we're picking a esports gaming-centric documentary to watch. And not necessarily review because we're no film critics, but just give our opinions and kind of talk about it. So the last one we did, which was probably about a month ago, was the Smash Brothers, the 8-part series about Super Smash back in 2014 and everything like that, when Melee was kind of king and Brawl came out. Wonderful. Which, if you Google best esports documentary, it's like on the top of the list on every website.
Yeah.
Which
And for the right reasons.
might have been our bad. We probably should have started at number 10.
And worked our way up.
And worked our way up.
I agree.
Maybe,
I agree.
Maybe that skewed our expectations for esports documentaries, which is kind of funny because I've seen talk on Twitter recently where it's like, oh, how come there aren't any good esports documentaries? And I've seen
Richard Lewis had a tweet out there about like somebody give him the money to make a documentary, and I was like, oh, he must have just heard our episode, obviously.
You know what? You might not be wrong. We do kind of move the needle in esports. It is, I don't think it's just serendipitous that we bring up that there's no good documentaries, and now all of a sudden everyone's saying that they'll do it if the price is right. So this time, it was suggested by a listener, hey, why don't you do Gamers, a documentary? And we were like, that's perfect. It's a Counter-Strike documentary. Again, DreamHack and the major was supposed to happen this weekend, so it ties right into that storyline. Let's give it a shot. It's only an hour long. Ahead of time, I just kind of clicked through it, and I was like, this looks great. This looks almost like the Smash Brothers-esque, but for Counter-Strike. No spoilers, but it's definitely not. I don't want to be a jerk. I don't want to say it was bad. but
it was lacking a
Look,
lot.
if
It
you're
left a lot to be desired.
if you're a listener and you're like, I wasted an hour of my life watching this, I will say our bad. That was our bad. But that's part of the ride. That's part of the journey. You're in this with us.
It wasn't terrible. There were moments of it that I did appreciate, and we'll get into it. But there was definitely, like I said, there was some stuff that was really left to be desired that, whether it's because it's a global issue, right? Like in the sense of Smash, it was all here in the US
Right.
for the most part. There was the Japanese scene, but there was enough going on here locally to like have content coming from everywhere.
I think also you need a narrator. You need someone telling me the story.
There was definitely no wife of the Counter-Strike scene to help walk you through each episode. Wife is a famous Smash player, for those of y'all that don't know. He was not necessarily a narrator in the Smash Brothers documentary, but he kind of walked you through each episode to a certain extent. Did a really good job of it.
You know, there was a narrator in the Smash Brothers. He wasn't like throughout the whole thing, but he made appearances here and there to set the stage. But yeah, you're exactly right. Really, there was no... I guess that's part of my issue. There just wasn't really a story throughout this whole thing. Like, it kind of seemed like in the last 20 minutes, you're like, oh, it was all leading up to CPL. I had no idea that was the case for the first 40 minutes. So it's never a good sign, and I told you this before we started. It's never a good sign, Anuj, when you look down to see how long you have left in the show, and you're only 20 minutes in. And I was
realizing you just started, basically. You just started this ride.
And it sucks because my wife, she knows. She doesn't watch a lot of this with me. But like last night, I was like, hey, watch this. It's about Counter-Strike. Boy, did I cash in on the wrong one.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
She will never trust me again when I'm like, hey, watch this esports documentary. No, she's done. She's out of the room. But so let's get into it because I feel like I'm trashing it. This was made in 2002. Let's keep that as a scope, right? Like
the clothing lets you know that.
Oh boy.
The clothing and the hairstyles give it away
the
for
lingo,
sure.
The attitude, so late 90s, early 2000s. It was painful, kind of cringeworthy. Yeah. Between the clothes style and just like you said, the overall air about it. I never thought I'd say this. I think they make the Smash guys look cool.
At that time, yeah, there was definitely some characters in here where you're like, oh, this is where we came from.
Take the 2002 Counter-Strike scene up against the 2014 Smash scene, and they're way cooler.
Seemed like more fun to hang out with.
Was it not 2014? I'm not saying that right? Smash?
No, it was before then.
2000.
That was like as late as that series went and when it was filmed.
That's what I was thinking. Okay, yeah.
But the documentary itself took place significantly earlier.
When did it come out? I don't know. Oh, this isn't about Smash Brothers. But in 2000. Yeah, okay. Came out in 2013 is what I was thinking. So either way, you get what I'm saying. They were a bunch of nerds. It is not like Counter-Strike has come a long way. Where now Counter-Strike, they're all, for the most part, in shape and wear really cool clothes, and then they look so cool, and they got all the hot girls, and it's like they're dating the trophy girlfriend now, being a pro gamer. Boy, not back then. Not back then. I loved the scene, and my wife was there for this one. I have no idea who this guy was, but he was like holding hands with his girlfriend or wife. I don't know if it was his wife or girlfriend, and he was talking about how he played like 60 hours of Counter-Strike a week. And she like supported him through all that. And my wife was like, you see how she like said he's changed? I'm like, babe, I play like 30 minutes a week. Okay. Do not compare the hour and a half that I get to myself at 1 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. Okay. Don't compare that
Yeah, that guy was playing 3 hours every single day after he changed his lifestyle.
Yeah, right. I'm like, this is after he's changed. So
So one thing I want to kind of dive into from the start of the documentary is I thought it was odd that it followed kind of a no-name team for as long as it did, like second to none, which, they competed at a high level in Maine, but it really followed them for a long time in the documentary. For the first 35, 40 minutes, and really even up until like the CPL event, it really focused on this team. And I was like, man, I don't recognize these names for the most part. And then it kicked in as to why, is because they never amounted to anything in the scene for the most part. And then it kind of goes into the CPL stuff. But I thought it was interesting that maybe they were just showing them to show the origin of Counter-Strike and how it kind of evolved as a Half-Life mod. But it followed, a lot of random, these were pre-med students, these were engineers, these were just like kids in college that played in their dorm room. And it kind of shows their story of how they went from playing casually to like playing semi-competitively at the time, consider it like a main level, one level below invite or pro players, or that would be considered pro. So that was one thing I wish if I could have asked for something different in this documentary, or something I would want in a Counter-Strike documentary, is to follow the pro scene from a young stage.
I wonder if that's, and this is where I would love to speak with like the director of it. I wonder if that's just a victim of the footage that they had.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. You don't get as lucky as you do with the Smash community in terms of how much footage, they had everything captured on camera for the Smash community.
And it wasn't necessarily the documentary, right? It wasn't the director recording all that.
No, it was just random people that contributed.
Yeah, it was home video that they just had. It was
like cool dude sitting there filming every tournament he went to, that type of stuff.
And they even said that one time they went into that little LAN center for a tournament and just got stomped. What was it? S2N. They even said, one of the guys were like, dude, we're main. These guys are invites. Like we played well for what we did, but again, it was like 13-2 or something. They got smoked.
Those were divisional qualifiers for the upcoming like CPL event.
Yeah.
And so they were playing in like the divisional qualifiers, which, mind you, this qualifier had 4 people from this area. So the competition you could see is like drastically different today. You would have 1,000 teams sign up for something like that if it was open to signups. But they had 4 teams competing, and they were the only main team in that event.
It did kind of take me back, though, just living in this area back then, too, though, because a lot of CPL was based right here in Dallas, where we lived. Yeah. And I know you were much more involved in the Counter-Strike scene back then. I was still all Halo and Rainbow back in 2003. I mean, I was 12 years old, so I wasn't going to any.
We were at CPL a year after this. So I think we went to 04 CPL because we started driving around 03. 03, 02 is when like a lot of our friends started getting driver's licenses, and that's when we started kind of going to some of these events. They had moved it to like the Renaissance downtown, and that was a big deal because it used to be in a smaller hotel even before then. But yeah, I mean, it was really neat to see. Again, like it just brought back so many memories. The CRT monitors, right? Seeing everybody gaming on the CRTs and the equipment they were using.
It was funny how it's changed. We want to kind of tie it in with DreamHack. How then everyone back then was just fine with a white tower, no crazy ass peripherals, nothing. Now, if you try to hand me a keyboard that doesn't have backlit keys, I'm smashing it on your face for wasting my time. Like, what do you mean a case without a window? What's the point of it? Who's going to see my graphics card? I have a 980. They need to see it.
I thought it was hilarious that some of the guys didn't have mics on their headset.
I know.
So they were leaving one ear off of the headset, okay? So as if you're basically deaf in one of your ears, and they were yelling to their teammates, and that's how they were making call outs. And granted, other teams not sitting right next to you in this situation because it's a huge LAN event where everybody is set up to play, but like still they were playing basically for half the time audio out of one ear and then flipping it back on when they weren't making comms. But I thought that was like really fun to see because that's the crap that we played on. I mean, that's what we had, right? You
Yeah.
had the old CRTs, the pre-built computers for the most part, and you would slowly upgrade parts in those things as you could.
Well, I
But
mean, I've said it on the show before, where it's, when you're a kid, you kind of start playing on your family's computer, right? That's just how it all starts. And I remember when I was super young, living in Detroit still. This had to have been like 97, 96, 97 before I moved to St. Louis. And me and my buddy would play on his computer because his family had a PC with games on it. He had Doom. And we both wanted to play, so we would literally, one would control the movement while the other controlled the aiming.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, like, that is some Pacific Rim shit right there. Like,
we used to do the same thing.
Could you imagine if you and I tried doing that? We should do that for a stream one time, where for Counter-Strike, I'll control WASD and the keyboard and you control the mouse. See how easy we get.
Bring back some good memories.
But we did it as kids, no problem. Yeah. So it's funny. I remember playing on my parents' PC. This was here. My mom had a ball, one of those ball mice, you know? That's what I played FPS on because that's all I knew. It's like, I didn't think it made a difference. It moves, right? I can aim. What's the difference? So it's just funny how technology has just changed and attitude towards it has changed.
Yeah, that was definitely like one of the first things I noticed was just them lugging around CRTs. And I was like, gosh, that was the worst. That was the worst, setting up a LAN and having to, I mean, you were making multiple trips to the car at that point. And so that was funny to see, and then also just looking back, like it was nice to see, like also something that brought back good memories was how all of these groups, clans, whatever, started coming together as like a group of friends, right? It wasn't always about being the best. It was just an opportunity to have fun with your boys, and so you would start up a clan. In Counter-Strike, I know that was the popular term that we used back then. I know that
it's very cringy now, isn't it? Like, no, it's a team. It was a team. Definitely not
a clan.
Like,
I still like it because that's where my mind goes, right? Like back to that time in my life. But yeah, the term now, like that's my clan, like sounds weird,
Like, what do you mean a clan, you nerd?
But it's just fun to see, like, a lot of these guys, like even if one of them was just a badass player, they were playing with their friends. They were playing with their dads in some cases. Here,
so that's how the Center Ring originally started. For those who might not know, is the Center Ring was my clan back in high school. It was our group of friends that we played everything with, from Pokemon Stadium, which is originally where it started. We wanted to have a Team Rocket-esque type of name. So we said, what if we did the Center Ring? And we were like the circus, and that was our theme, right? So there's a little behind the scenes for you. And then it just went from Halo and Call of Duty and everything, right? We just stuck with it. And you're absolutely right, because back then the world was so small, right? Is we only played with my friends. We had offers when I played Rainbow to join other teams, and me being the idiot, I mean, looking back, I'm like, you're an idiot. You should have just said yes, because I was like, no, I'm playing with my friends. I don't want to play with you guys. I don't know you. I just want to play with my friends, regardless if they weren't as good. So yeah, it was cool to see that, and especially how back then, I mean, the teams that traveled, it's kind of crazy when you see teams that travel now to smaller events. Now CPL was not a small event; it was a huge event in Counter-Strike, especially back.
But still in the early stages of its life, like it very much in its infancy. That's what I'm saying.
Like, to travel the world that early on in a game's lifespan, I thought was kind of crazy. They did bring up 3D. The team you played notoriously has played against. I think we saw like the side of Rambo's head.
Yeah, that was where like the legends and a lot of nostalgia kicked in, was seeing like K Sharp and Rambo. They followed Geffen, who they followed him and actually interviewed him a lot on this show. And at the time he was playing for Team Speak. What was the name of their
TSO? The Speak Easy Offensive.
Yeah, the Speak Easy Offensive or whatever it was. Geffen eventually.
How did you like that though? Where he was like, "Oh yeah, I've been in the scene for a while now, and I've already been in 5 events. I don't know how much longer I have. I'm like, bro,
that's a weekend of CS:GO now.
that is so funny how back then he has been to 5 events, is telling himself, well, it's been a good career, time to look at other options, where now you're absolutely right. They do 5 events in a week.
Yeah.
It's like it's just crazy.
And he actually went on to continue playing, even though he said that in the documentary. He went on to play with Team 3D after that. But it was like, did you notice that was Heaton that you saw on SK? When they showed SK winning it all that year?
I was trying to play that game throughout the entire documentary.
Yeah. That was Heaton that they showed. It was the main guy that they continuously showed on the German roster or Swedish roster back then. They also showed Potty, which Potty is like a legendary NIP player still associated with the org, I feel like, in some way. Heaton obviously is in the Hall of Fame for esports, and so you saw some of the Shagwire was at that event.
Thorn, I saw Thorn a few times in the background.
Thorn?
Yep.
I didn't even see him. I didn't even notice him in there.
Yep.
So that was like crazy to see how many legends were kind of being born at the time. Like that was also early on in their career. And Team 3D went on to win, I think, the winter for this same event. So this was like the summer CPL event. And then Team 3D's era kind of kicked in there starting from winter onwards. But yeah, like that stuff was that part I enjoyed. I really did enjoy them at the CPL event.
The story was about, though. Like all that we've spent talking about literally was in like the last 15 or 20 minutes of the documentary. Yeah. The first other 40 or 50 minutes was just, I felt like, what are we doing here? Like, I don't understand what you're trying to... Like, I wish the story was the road to CPL or something. You know what I'm saying?
They tried to get a lot of information into so it started off with the history of Counter-Strike. Then it went into like the objective of the game, right? Then the community, then they, the lower ranked teams, and then over to CPL, all in like an hour and 10 minutes. So they really had like, and then they even, they brought in like,
with no one really narrating the connections between all of that.
Yeah, because there weren't many connections between a lot of them. It was funny. They brought in like a hacker for a part of it to interview him.
What an edgelord that guy was.
That was like, if you've ever seen an episode of what's that TV show?
He's the guy from Grandma
Drug
Boys.
Lords.
Grandma Boys. If you've ever seen that movie.
Well, like the way they blacked him out.
Yeah.
And like you couldn't see his face, and it was like
witness
very
protection.
Like, yeah, like he was in witness protection with his cat walking around behind him.
His name. Like, bro, I can't see your face, but they put your name right here. Like, did you not? And then the hacker called himself the true evil. He goes, "We're the true evil." Oh my God.
It is true. They are the true evil.
I mean, they are the true evil, but when they call themselves that, it was like, yo, you are an edgelord. You are a nerd, a loser.
This guy was really proud of himself.
Like, honestly, no one, I feel like hackers think people get a lot more upset about hackers than what they really do. Like, when you're up against a hacker, you're like, fuck that guy, report him. What can you do?
Move on to the next game.
Yeah, all
yeah.
right, on to the next one. I did not understand early on in the documentary the little 5-minute clip for Velvet Strike. That was that chick talking about how, I wish I could pull the audio, but the documentary was recorded all in the right speaker, and when I record, it goes on mono, so it doesn't work. That's just a little 2002 editing there for you. But I didn't understand that at all. I don't understand how that had anything. It was almost like they recorded it. Maybe that was like the director's girlfriend or something, and he was like, yes, I'll put it in there. Like, okay, I'll put it in. I'll put it in. Because it made no sense to the flow of the documentary. And she was like, yeah, people say it's like real life, but it's not real life because there's no corpses and bodies and bleeding and screaming people. And it's like, okay, lady, like, yeah, I don't think when they said it's realistic, they meant it was like real war, okay?
It was
chill
realistic
out.
in the sense if you got hit in the head with a bullet, your character died. That's
She
it.
was
That's
like
what they
going on
meant.
all the reasons on why they were wrong, and it was just like she was getting off.
That was really weird. Like I didn't understand. Again, that's one of those things where it was like, wait a minute, did I change what I was watching? Like what the
That
hell am I
was
watching
right
right
when
now?
my wife checked out, because while she was watching that, she even said, "What are they talking about?" And I was like, "I have no idea." we were talking about Carlito and Carlito Jr. I look up and they're talking about Velvet Strike and how they are like some anti-Counter-Strike realistic group. I have no idea. None whatsoever.
Are you and Shep gonna be the Carlito and Carlito Jr. of the Counter-Strike world?
So it's funny you bring that up. I made a note of it. Back then, there's no way you could pay me to play video games on that level. Like, sure, Mario, Tiger Woods, baseball games, things like that. Sure, Tetris. I remember playing Tetris with my parents. But when it comes to like Counter-Strike and things like that, no way. No. And even more so, if like you and I were playing and you're like, hey, my dad's going to come over and play with us, I'd be like,
I gotta go.
Yeah, man. Internet
Okay, but
died.
now look at it today. And Shep is now 18 years old. You know, Tim sitting in his mid 40s, early 50s, but still gaming hard.
I got to
'cause I
carry
know
him.
You will.
Got to carry him to Immortal and Valorant.
He's like, hey, Dad, we need you to step in for my CSGO 10 open team. Would you mind hopping in for a game? Would you play with your kid in that way?
You know, I think I would, because I'm used to the culture. My dad, I mean,
Oh, dude, you think your dad wouldn't have been used to the culture? My dad would have been in freaking shock
would have
had
sent
he
you to
joined
boot
a
camp.
CS game back then. Yeah, I will be playing with my kid 100%. In that era of gaming, it was highly unusual though, right? Because his dad was like the first generation of gamers, just like we were to a certain extent, right? Like we're in that early generation of gamers, but his dad was like truly in the sense of he was like IT savvy. He was building computers as soon as games came out. Like, so that was neat to see, like, hey, that's how he got his kid into Counter-Strike, you know, because he enjoyed playing it. And that's probably the story for a lot of these guys now, right? Like a lot of these guys are older than our age, if not older in some cases. But yeah, like back then you would have never caught me playing with my dad, just because that's not the world he was accustomed to. Like that would have been interesting. But yeah, like now that's not so weird. Like I'm going to be playing with my kid for sure. I cannot wait for him to like be old enough.
That being said, I think I would draw the line of like, I'll play with my kid. I don't think I'll play with my kid and his friends. Like,
oh no,
if
it gives me a pass to play, I'm out.
I'm out. You're playing with them. I'm like, yeah, we need.
I play with 13-year-olds now, Tim. Half of some of our listeners are like kids, and we join in, we play with them.
My kids' friends' life. I don't need any of that. I don't need that baggage. No, sir. Maybe times will change. Maybe times will change. But some of the things I say, I'm more concerned about me.
See, you would have to be the one. Yeah, you would be the one that would taint all the friends.
Like,
you know,
like my kid would be the one embarrassed of me. I wouldn't even be embarrassed of my kid. It'd be my kid would be like, Dad, why are you teabagging them again?
I can already hear you yelling at your kid's friends for not holding down like an angle properly or like crosshair placement, like already just being like, where are you aiming? Like where are you looking?
Jimmy, I'm calling your fucking mom. Whatever.
You're gonna be the dad that drops kids off early from the sleepover because they suck so bad.
What happened? Like, he didn't clutch or kick. He knows the rules. Clutch or kick. He got kicked. That's how it works at my house. That's how it works at sleepover at Tim's house. Yeah, that would have to. I would probably get a lot of phone calls from other kids' parents. To be honest with you.
Yeah.
Why is my son talking about teabagging?
No, my kid will not be allowed to play with you. He'll be allowed to play with me.
Teach him a few things. Teach him a few things for sure. So overall, I thought it was funny. It was really funny, if we're kind of going back in the documentary, to see we take advantage, I think, in today's world, and we can use Valorant as a good discussion considering it's a newer game, quote unquote. How the rules are just there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like we get in, okay, there's halves and you play half the map on T side and half the map on counter terrorists. It's right now the best, first to 16, and this is how it goes. There's friendly fire unless you're a bitch, and for whatever reason Valorant doesn't have friendly fire. Don't get me started. I think it should. But like then they had in the documentary at one of these early on LAN parties or tournaments. It was a tournament. It wasn't just like friends playing at a LAN party. It was an actual tournament. Before the tournament started, they were making the rules by taking a show of hands votes in the parking lot. Like they were like, should we have friendly fire? Yes or no?
Like deciding major rules, right? Not like
round-based or time-based. I've never heard time-based in my life. That doesn't even make sense.
No, for what Tim's saying there is when we're saying time-based, like on each half you get 12 minutes. And whatever you're recorded, however many rounds you can win during that time, that's your score for that side. And they were like doing a show of hands on what people preferred. Now, thankfully, it ended up being friendly fire on. It ended up being MR12, so like the things that we're accustomed to seeing. But it was funny to see that as like, all right, what does everybody want to play for?
That
for this
reminded
event?
me of the Smash Brothers, where it's like East Coast played with completely different rules as West Coast. And,
yeah.
As you went back and forth, like even for me, I guess I've just always known Counter-Strike to have the similar rules to what it has now. I don't ever remember it just being the Wild West of, well, guys, how do we want to play this game? Like it's always been.
To be fair, like I have never attended a Counter-Strike tournament as a player or a fan back then even that allowed you to like pick the rules in that way.
Like, do you think that was like a one-off?
I do. I think that was like a lack of knowledge on the organizers' part. But like, I mean, I went to my first Counter-Strike tournament was probably 2002, like 2001, when Ronnie, one of my friends, was the first to start driving out of all of us. So he drove us over to a local event that we could go to in Plano, and it was like none of that was the way it was. Like it was all very set in stone. You knew what you were going to be playing. So I do think that was a one-off, but again, that just shows how the gaming scene has changed. Like things are just handed to us. Hey, this is how it's going to be. This is the way this game should be played, and then you alter your play style around that. A lot of these guys were definitely not dealing with that same scenario.
No, so overall, the documentary had moments where, especially if you... So here's the thing. Smash Brothers was a time capsule for anyone. Even if you weren't around then, you could still watch it today and be like, wow, that's how it was back then. That's crazy.
That's how it is now.
Gamers... similar prize pools for Smash Brothers. Where gamers, though, I think if you weren't around back then, I don't know if you're going to get the same impact because it's just not that entertaining of a documentary.
One thing we should have done for this docu-series is we should assign number of rings to each one. Like a 1 through 5. Like where do we rank it? You can give it half rings to. And that way we keep a running tally of like, hey, this is our TCR ranking for these documentaries.
We're only 2 in. It's not that bad. We can go 1 through 10.
So if we were doing the Smash
just
Brothers
give it a score, right? I don't want to rank. Just give them a score. Like So
like this is like 3 and like this is 4 stars, 4.5 stars, 5 stars, whatever.
4 point whatever. We can do point system here. I would give Smash Brothers on a documentary scale, an esports documentary scale, I would give it like a 9.2.
Okay, so this is out of 10.
Yeah. We're pizza scaling it here, like Barstool.
Yeah, so
9.2. Yeah, I'll stick with 9.2, 9.3, but I'll say 9.2 because that's what I said.
Okay, I'm gonna go right in the same range. I'm just gonna give it a 9 out of 10. Like I thought it was the Smash Brothers to me was everything I would want in a documentary for them. I mean, I can't really think of areas that I wish they dove into more. Like I saw a little bit more like game footage than maybe they gave us. Like there was a ton of talking in the Smash Brothers documentary and not a ton of footage. But overall, I got what I wanted out of it. I was like very much involved in the different personalities and like the scenes. Like I was started rooting for one side or the other, so I got really invested in that. So I would say 9 out of 10 also for the Smash Brothers.
For this one, I mean, it's probably going to be a little harsh. I'll let you go first. You go first. I went first last.
Yeah. So for this one, I'm gonna set it with I went in there with expectations of getting the history of Counter-Strike up until the point this was like released, right? Or while they were filming. So I was looking for more of a true documentary of the history of Counter-Strike. And for what they gave me and how it was put together, I would honestly say like 4 out of 10. Is where, and I was even thinking 3.5, honestly, but like 3.5 sounds really harsh, and I'm sure there's going to be some worse ones than this, so I need to save a little bit of room there. So I'm going to say 4 out of 10 because I went in with really high expectations, and really I enjoyed about 20 minutes out of the hour.
I would say, I was going to say about 4.3 is what I was going to give it because I thought it was. Again,
it left a lot.
20 minutes in, I looked at my phone to see how long do I have left. 20 minutes in, I was like, all right, let's wrap it up. But check it out. It's an
check
hour.
It out after we say all of this. Go ahead and check it out.
It's an hour long, right? If you got nothing doing it, put it on in the background, play some games while doing it.
And if you want to, start at about the 40-minute mark. If you want to skip a lot of the early stuff that it has nothing to do with like the pro scene, start at about the 40-minute mark. Catch the last 30 minutes of it or so, and I think that would be an enjoyable watch, especially for you Counter-Strike heads out there that know the history or know some of the players. You'll definitely recognize faces, recognize names, teams that are like legendary teams that this is when they started, like your SK, your Evil Geniuses. Like these teams were there then. A lot of people don't know that. So I do say that if it was just the last 30 minutes, it would have a much higher score than I gave it. But if you're looking for just a little bit of CS in your life, go catch the last 30 minutes of it. I think that would be an enjoyable watch.
Yeah, I would say that's fair. That is fair. Staying on the theme of Counter-Strike, though, this weekend again was supposed to be the Rio Major. It is now postponed until later this year. I don't think we're going to see it happen, at least in Rio. It might happen online. It might happen elsewhere. Maybe if they figure out a way to get the players in and do a LAN and it's not in front of a crowd, right? Just almost like a studio major. I could see maybe that being the case, but traveling and all that, probably not.
We'll probably have an online major this year, if anything. If we're going to have a major this year, it'll be an online major.
The whole year, if all of the qualifiers have been online, I guess I wouldn't necessarily care. I think that would almost make sense. If everything up to get into the major was online, just make it online.
I want it on LAN, but I would rather have a major than not have one.
Right.
Personally. I know a lot of people out there would disagree with that sentiment, though. They'd be like, I don't want this to go down in the record books if it's online. Like, it's not fair depending on your region, yada, yada, yada.
Look, they've awarded Stanley Cup champions on shortened years and,
NBA championships on lockout years. It
happens.
It does. Stuff happens. But I do want to see a major regardless. I would be pretty heartbroken if we lost.
But again, I've heard news about Brazil. Like today, they had like one of their highest death totals, and apparently it's hitting them pretty hard. So obviously, I know we actually have some Brazilian listeners, so hopefully you're staying safe and everything's good for you. But it does not look like the major is going to go your way. If I was a betting man, I would say not gonna happen in Brazil anyways. But what if we never had the delay? What if it was still going to go on, Anuj? I'll let you kind of set the scene as far as what we could have had and what we might have going forward.
So to think of what we could have had running here, right, is you have Astralis' legendary run that they've had over the past few years. And all of that would have been built up into, what are they going to do? Who's going to compete with them? Who's going to contend with them? Obviously, G2 from where they were last year to how they've been performing. FaZe. There's just so many different teams. Like, where was NA going to be? There's so many what if scenarios here that I think it would have made for a really fun major, because I feel like the field is fairly open in my eyes right now. There's a couple of teams that are outperforming everybody else, but I don't think it's by a wide margin like we've seen in years past. I think leading into the last major, everybody had Liquid, Astralis 1-2, and it was like, when was that? We were just waiting for that to happen. This year I really couldn't tell you. Would Astralis be in the finals? My gut would tell me yes, but I couldn't give you the slightest clue, Tim, who their competition would be on the other end.
Yeah, just looking at it, you're like, oh, maybe Na'Vi, but they've been performing kind of ish right now, right? I think the NA is one of the sides that kind of intrigues me. Honestly, if you're just looking at the teams that were supposed to be there, if we're looking at, looking at what's here, the Challengers
stage on top, and then I wrote those are the contenders on bottom.
The contenders on bottom. Okay, so if you're just looking at it, some of these guys that would have been in the major now, if it were to happen originally like planned, some of these guys are, struggling, gasping for air to stay in the current major run. I don't know if that's better or for worse. We talked about it, when they kind of threw everyone back into the pool and said, okay, we got to all requalify. We kind of guessed which teams might hurt from this, which teams might benefit from this. I think it's definitely shocked me more on who's hurting than who's benefiting from it. Even like with Astralis, if the major were happening now, I'm trying to do the math. So Glaves just said that he's taking a 3-month break, for those who don't know. So he's going to come back before the major coming up, right? Yeah. If everything goes as planned.
They're just so far and away above in points right now that they can afford to have him away a little bit.
So maybe that's a benefit then to Astralis, that things are slowing down a little bit, just because, take that mental break or whatever you need on that part. But yeah, I think it's looking here. I think Evil Geniuses, how they were in the major and now they're looking extremely rough. Liquid just lost recently a 2-1 to Chaos, of all teams to lose to.
They lost to Cloud9. They lost to Chaos. They lost
Envy,
to Furia,
who
has been
Envy recently.
Yeah, it's just Liquid would be the biggest storyline, I think, heading into the major, because the way they're playing right now, I don't even see them making it out of the first round. Right now, they're having a hard time staying in contention on NA's side, let alone just competing against the better teams in EU. I think Liquid would have been a really interesting storyline, because they have failed on so many fronts of just finding consistency during this tough time, right? It's hard for a lot of teams, right? They're not the only ones that are having to play online and figure out, solutions this way. I think they had an opportunity to bring Chet in potentially to help them out, or maybe make some sort of bigger coaching change to possibly help them. But they're in a world of hurt. I think losing to Chaos is super telling. They're a team that should nowhere near be competing at Liquid's level. And they had a tough time against them. They looked bad. And I don't know if a roster change necessarily makes 100% sense unless you can go out and get exactly who you're looking for. Because if you're picking from the free agent pool, well, all 5 of your players are better than anybody that's on the free agent market right now. So that doesn't make any sense. So it would have to be somebody off of another roster.
If I had to make something out of nothing, okay? Can I say that? I'm not saying this is fact. Elige has been playing a lot of Valorant and has participating in Valorant tournaments, not just playing casually on stream, but being involved with tournaments with guys who are trying to go pro in the game. So clearly this isn't just like they're not just asking him to throw away, like they're asking him to compete on a level of, hey, we're taking this serious, right? Do you think that there's any issues with distractions? I'm not saying Elige is moving to Valorant. I'm not saying he's burnt out on Counter-Strike. I'm saying he's sitting at home in quarantine for a long time, and maybe it's just, wandering eyes are playing different games at the moment.
I mean, yeah, but it's such a bad excuse if that's the case. Like Stewie made an excuse or tweeted out or whatever. I don't know where he said it on one of his socials, that, because of all the like online play, they haven't had time to like adjust their game and make the changes necessary to like overcome some of the deficits that they currently have, right? So he's saying that they don't have enough time right now to put in that work to get to where they need to be. And to that I say, like, they've only had like really one tournament a month for the past like 2-3 months now. Obviously games in between with the league play and stuff like that, but they're playing a match like every 3 to 4 days roughly at the moment. That's a lot of time in between to make adjustments. Like, this is an online video game we're talking about. You don't have to go to the gym. You don't have to have your coach on the whiteboard drawing stuff out for you. Like, everything is doable online. That's the beauty of esports. Like, we didn't really take a nosedive or completely shut down because of what's going on. It's altered how we, watch and host events. But in terms of what they're doing, they still have all the capabilities, and they probably should have more time now because there's less distractions. I know you're saying, oh, well, they're at home. There's more distractions. That really should be the opposite. Like, you are at home all day, should be at home all day, majority of the day. You should be able to find time, whether it has to be later in the evening than usual, to put in the time to like get better. And so that's a really worrisome statement, because once COVID goes away, they're going to be busier. You're going to be traveling. You're going to be playing catch up. Sponsors will want you to do things. You'll be getting pulled a lot of different ways by your team to catch up on a lot of the requests that have probably been put on hold over the past few months. So it's not going to get any easier. And so for me, like, Liquid struggles would have carried over. In my what-if scenario, Liquid would have been an early exit at the major. I don't think they would have been able to pull it together and rebound in such a way where they would have been, sitting in the semis or the finals at the end of the day. I think they would have had a tough time. I think they would have got knocked out by, it wouldn't have had to have been an Astralis, to knock them out. Like a G2 the way they're playing, a FaZe the way they're playing. There's a couple of other teams in that mix that probably would have given them, a really tough challenge before they made it to any crucial part of the major. Another team that's probably in that same boat, Tim, is ENCE. ENCE is a team that's sitting there in the challenger stage or legend stage, whatever it's called, the legend stage, because they got top 8 at the last major, so they would have had a free run to play here at the end and have a position to win it all. But, they've struggled so much as of late. They obviously, Alexi B is not on the team anymore. They haven't found a way to gel, although they've gotten a couple of wins recently. Haven't really found a way to bounce back all the way. In Vitality, right there with them. A team at the end of last year, just like Liquid, that was sitting on top of this mountain, could do no wrong. Even if they were losing matches, it was a wow factor in every game. They were competitive. ZywOo was the best player in the world. And they've nosedived just like Liquid have. And I would see them, another team in my what-if scenario, your Liquid, ENCE, Vitality, Evil Geniuses, all would have, in my mind, been out earlier in this tournament than expected.
I think some of the teams that almost look better, right? I think that the break is helping, and it would have been performed better. I think G2, apart from G2, gets a lot of short end of the sticks because the way they lose is just almost comical at times, right? And they poke fun at themselves, so it kind of just looks that way. But I think G2 has been playing consistent, right? Maybe not always dominating and winning and everything, but they've looked consistent, which for the longest time is something that G2 never had, right? That's what they always struggled with. And it was their French counterparts in Vitality that would just run away with events and look consistent. Well, it's almost like the script has flipped in the sense of like Kenny S seems to be getting his op back a little bit, even though I still think they kind of live and die by his op, but it's being more consistent. So I guess it's okay right now. I think that they've
adding Nexa and Hunter has been huge to them and giving them consistency because they're two like veteran players that are like just very skilled, high level players that were leading another team. So I think that's also taken some of the pressure off of Kenny to be like, I have to be the one to perform for us to win this. He still has his aggressive mindset, which hurts them at times, but he has people to rely on now. A lot more than he did this time last year. So yeah, I definitely agree. Like G2 is playing right now the way Mouse Sports was playing a few months back, right? Like really surprising everybody. Now in Mouse Sports' case, they won the ESL Pro League. They won the CSGO Asia tournament. They won like 3 or 4 tournaments back to back to back that really put them in good position. And then they had the player break. And then they came back. And like Mouse Sports looks like a completely different team. But G2 right now, to me, is playing the way Mouse Sports was playing then. And that would be great heading into the major. Like they would be confident against really anybody that they played, maybe except for Astralis, because Astralis did just 3-0 them, but technically it was a 2-0 because they started off with the map advantage. But either way, it didn't look good in either of those games, like really got manhandled. So we'll see what that does to their confidence. That would be my fear if the event was this weekend in G2, a French team just got manhandled. Let's be real, like the French teams with their passion, we'll call it, sometimes have a hard time rebounding from such things. It takes them a little bit longer to bounce back. But yeah, I think G2 would have put themselves in great position going into the major because they've just looked so good as of late.
The one team that I'm kind of interested in is
MMBR.
Not at all. Not at all. In fact, they've had so much deductions because of point rosters that the points that they got for being in Berlin completely gone. Because they've made so many roster changes that they've had over, I think they had 300 points worth of Berlin, and they've made a couple of roster changes, most recently benching
Myron.
Yeah. And so now that's completely gone. They've wiped out any advantage they had from being in the previous major through roster
They lost
change.
Cold, lost Myron. I mean, they've switched the 5th person 75 times, and it's always the 5th person's fault. So they would have.
Yeah.
MIBR would have been a first round exit.
MIBR, if you're the 5th man in, just know you always have a target on your back.
If you're the 5th man in, you're the first man out. That should be MIBR's like motto. 5th man in, first man out. And they would have been an early exit. They in this what if scenario, that was an easy one for me. Like I didn't think they would put themselves in any sort of position to do well here. Like I think they're gonna have a hard time even qualifying, honestly, at this point.
Yeah, definitely. So it almost kind of leaves the top teams being Astralis still, despite, and I'm gonna say this is a what if they have their starting roster, right? Because obviously if it's starting today, I think, I don't know when Glaive's leave of absence starts, but
I think it already started. I think Jugi stepped in for him in the last match they had.
Okay, yeah. You're right, he did. Now that I think about it, he actually played pretty well. So my thing with Astralis, and I'm kind of going to backtrack on what I think we've even mentioned on the show, even though I think I've kind of said I like it. After hearing Glaive's statement, after reading his tweet about how he needs that mental break, like he is done, right? The doctors even said you got to take a mental break, things like that. I do think for this scenario, this is why teams should have a 6th man. Now, not every team needs a 6th man, because I'm not to say they don't need it because lower teams don't have mental issues or mental breaks. But what I think is when you're Astralis, you can afford to play with a 6th man because you have that cushion in the points, and the other 4 guys on the team on that particular game can carry and lift that other sub-in up with them, right? But if you're an Ents, So if Yugi is Astralis' sixth man, who the hell's the sixth man for a team like Ents, right? So that's why that doesn't work as well for every team.
Didn't they get Jampy? I think they
Ents-
signed Jampy as a sixth man.
Oh, you know what? No, I think you say that. Okay, bad example because they did get
Bad
six.
example. Yeah, but I get
Bad
what you're
example. But you get my point. When you're not like a top 3 team, because I don't even think Jampy's necessarily going to work with Ents because you have to
saying.
have.
Isn't he has a VAC ban on his account? Like, what is he going to do with that anyway?
That's exactly. You have to have that cushion to trust in him saying, "Look, I don't need you to replace Glaive. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for you to not suck for 3 months. Give us 3 months of your best Counter-Strike, and we can pick up the slack. Just don't suck for 3 months." I like it. I do think I think mental health is one of those trump cards where, you know, as soon as they play it, you can't really argue it if you're just going to be a good human being. We all go through it. I don't think the fact that just because these guys get paid big bucks is an excuse to work them like dogs. I think the scenario and their schedule is shit, partially their fault. It's the monster that we have built when it comes to esports, right? We kind of never really thought people would need a break. Because even like a player break, like don't get it twisted. People will be like, oh, well, they get player breaks here and there. Yeah, but typically the player break is leading into a major.
Yeah.
So
it's leading into some big event or start off with
your 1 month player break is really only going to be like a week because then teams are going to get back into training for a major. Like they're going to have to warm up. You can't just go into that cold.
No, you're absolutely right. Like if you're Astralis, what do you have to prove? Nothing, right? So having Glaive sit out for the next 3 months, and let's say Astralis goes 500 over that time period, but hey, then Glaive comes back a month or two before the major and they ramp back up to, let's just say, where they were or close to, then again, they're still going to be the favorite heading into the major. It doesn't change the narrative at all for them. There are other teams out there, however, that, yeah, you're right. They're not going to have the flexibility to sit somebody because all those players have something to prove. So if you're a player on a squad 5 through 15 ranked team, you're trying to hold your own and keep your spot. The last thing you need is somebody else to step in and, oh my gosh, this team has a Dak Prescott kind of moment where, hey, it's just too hard to put the original starter back in. We just can't bring you back because Mr. New Fifth over here, we've been killing it. We haven't lost a match with him, you know?
Yeah.
And so if you're a mid-level team, still obviously a very good team, you don't want to sit. You don't want to be the guy to fall out. Even if you need the mental break, you don't want to be that guy to take a seat and let somebody else potentially take your spot. So Astralis has that flexibility. Again, they have nothing to prove to anybody. They have proven themselves over and over and over again. Their stars will show you that. So they have that flexibility. The idea of the sixth man in this case does make sense, however. For that reason, it's just going to be really difficult to implement like a highly talented sixth man on other rosters because if you have a really good sixth man, I promise you, there's very few players that are going to be like, yeah, let me take a break and
rosters feel comfortable enough with themselves to allow that, right?
Yeah.
Like only guys on Astralis can take a step back and give another dude 3 months, not just one event, 3 very important months, and being like, yeah, dude, you can take my spot. And knowing 100% Glaive can come back and take it right back.
Whenever he wants, yeah.
Yeah, come back
and
whenever.
The best case scenario here, the worst case scenario for Astralis is they don't perform well. Glaive comes back, they go back to where they're at. The best case scenario is Jugi performs incredible, and now they have an asset on their hand that they could potentially loan or sell to another team. So there's benefits in it for them. I think they're covered either way with their scenario.
Yep. So there's a little peek for if the major was starting today and some of the top teams to just keep an eye on. As far as just a quick update, though, because the major isn't starting today, and we are still in the qualifiers. Do you have one thing?
Real quick, Tim. Real quick. If the major was today, can we please at least tell the listeners who we have in the finals and who's winning it potentially?
Oh, yeah. Go for it.
At least who we have in the finals. At least who we have in the finals.
Of these teams that are in front of us right now?
Yeah, or just any of the teams that are competing right now.
I would say, I think Astralis is I would feel comfortable. And I think their recent performance against Liquid has kind of turned me around on them. But I'm going to say Cloud9. It might shock you, might shock our listeners, but I'm going to say Cloud9.
Cloud9, Astralis, probably Cloud9 winning that, I would assume.
Yeah, I think they surprise. I think they're a surprise pick.
After 2018, you'll never not bet on them again. So
Never.
I understand that. Yeah, I mean, mine's not going to look much different than yours. Obviously, I'm going to have Astralis in there. It's just hard to pick against them. Even when they're slightly slumping, they still look better than majority of the field. If I had to pick somebody that was going up against them right now, I'm going to say FaZe. I think they would surprise people in the tournament. I know that they've slumped a little bit again and just played badly, but I think there's enough middle of the pack teams where it takes somebody to go on a run. Like somebody's going to make that run on the other side of the bracket. I think they would have a chance to do that. I think they have enough star power. This would be the first major, like with Cold and Nico on the same team.
Right.
I think those boys might step up. So that's who I would take. Obviously, I'm going to pick Astralis to win it again.
The beautiful thing is that where we're at in Counter-Strike, I don't feel like any team is safe at this point. I mean, obviously,
They're safe from tier 2 teams coming up. There's not any of those left.
Apart from Astralis being Astralis and just having the track record, but they've even kind of slumped here and there in certain matches. Now, they've always turned it around, but you never know. When's eventually they're not going to turn it around. I think right now, though, we are at a very exciting time when we're going into these qualifying majors to see these teams that should be competing well and struggling. I mean, just on EU side, Fnatic, if we just took the standings, locked them in today, said, boom, this is the major, Fnatic would not be in the major. They would be out. This is the same Fnatic team. I don't know where they're at right now, but ranked number 1 in the world not that long ago. I don't know when the last time HLTV updated their rankings and everything with the online stuff going on, but Fnatic was number 1 in the world. And now they wouldn't be in the major. So they kind of have a mountain to climb.
They're currently sitting at 3. Astralis is back up to number 1 after their recent victory. Surprisingly enough, Na'Vi has floated around there, and they're sitting at number 2, which seems a little odd by the way that they've played to hold the number 2 slot. But really, like, at the top, it's just a mess. There's really nobody consistent. You say it's exciting. I say we're seeing inconsistent CS more than anything, where teams that we think should be doing well are like losing games they're not supposed to lose. I don't have faith in anybody below Astralis to be like, if I was putting money down, I wouldn't put $1 on any team 2 through 20 right now. I really wouldn't. Like, there's no one that you could convince me of that, hey, this team should be the favorite to win it because of this, this, and this. Like, there's not one.
You bet the over. That's what you do. You don't pick winners. Bet the over, because all these games are going to map 3. So bet the over. That's what I've been doing. It's been treating me okay so far. So there you have it. That's a what if the major started, but sadly it's not. We still have to wait and see whatever happens when they decide. Let's get into some e-news, though, shall we? We have a little bit to get to. Some of this we already discussed, like Liquid losing 2-1 to Chaos. Taz and Neo reunite. I don't know how. Is it Honoris? Is that how you say that?
Sure.
They're back. They're back together, so maybe a little bit of VP magic happening again. Probably not, though. Hampus. Is that how you say his name?
Yeah, this was a very questionable move. I don't understand this. NiP is replacing Lekro on their starting roster. Lekro's been with the team since 2018. Played in several events with them. I think has taken them as high as like a 6 rating in the rankings, and even now, like, they were looking fairly good. And so Lekro is now moving to the bench. Hampus is stepping in. That's a risky move. This reminds me a little bit of ENCE moving Alexi B out and bringing in the young gun star that people were kind of yearning for. I think this might come back to bite him in the butt a little bit because Lekro is just such a consistent player. So questionable move. We'll see. Obviously, we'll have to see how it goes. But yeah, that kind of, to me, it was a little bit of a blindside move. I didn't see that coming.
I thought I don't really have them on my radar a whole lot these days, but I thought they were performing above expectation.
They were. They haven't been playing bad.
You know what? I think your Ents comparison was perfect. Ents started performing well, got a little too cocky, got a little full of themselves, and said, you know what? We're one move away from hitting up in that top tier teams, and they did it, and it kind of backfired. I think this is going to backfire as well. Already talked MIBR benching Myron. And did they say who their fifth is?
I'm not sure, honestly.
I know they did. I just had it up. I closed it. But they do have a fifth player. Trust me on that. What's going on with the Mountain Dew League?
Yeah, I mean, right now there's been a lot of complaints. Dazzle has been very public about it. Flom as well, like two bigger names in MDL. But talking about a lot of matches having to be forfeited because of scheduling issues, a lot of internal talk of potentially teams throwing, and they feel like, there's been several cases of it, although they didn't point at teams directly. They feel like that's been happening. Also, it's not a move-up season, so they feel like nobody has a reason to really compete this year, along with half of them also being like half-ass focused on Valorant right now and trying to figure out what they want to do with their esports career. So MDL just kind of in shambles at the moment. I don't think it's surprising considering the esports environment at the moment. A lot of these guys are going over to Valorant, so I understand a lot of their heads not being in the game. But yeah, I mean, a bad look. Tier 2 Counter-Strike is like really going to suffer, which we'll see how the long-term consequences are there. But yeah, tough spot for MDL to be in.
Like Work announcing that there won't be any bonuses this next year, and yet they're still trying to push for that year-end review. Like, boss man, let me tell you right now, it doesn't matter.
Like, all your performance-based bonuses are gone.
Yeah, like, I don't care about it anymore, so please stop bringing it up.
I'll do just enough to keep the job.
Yeah, just don't fire. Where do I have to be to not get fired? Okay. DreamHack Masters started yesterday, so we have NA and EU kicking off. Of course, that is where Chaos beat Liquid and everything there, so good to have some meaningful Counter-Strike back. It's only been like a week, so there you go. In Overwatch, American Dad, I did not see this. I probably should have gone back to pull some audio. Maybe we'll do it next time. American Dad, I didn't know they were still making new episodes of that show. Did an Overwatch World Cup episode.
Yeah, I didn't watch it myself. I saw like a clip of what it was.
This had to have been paid advertising, right?
I mean, if they did, they also paid IGN as well recently.
The skeptic in me says that they're paying because IGN gave IGN, a super reputable gaming reviewing website, and I'm laying sarcasm on that pretty damn thick because they are not a reputable gaming website at all. They have been busted many times for getting paid reviews or people who haven't even played the game reviewing the game, but gave Overwatch a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
4 years after it being released, you're going to give a game a 10 out of 10.
Now, the game has done enough to, like, if they had came in and Tim and they said 7 out of 10, I wouldn't have blinked.
You could have said 8 out of 10.
Yeah, 8 out of 10. Hey, you know what? Like, the game is fun in certain areas. It's not a bad game. It's just that we feel like there's certain things in the meta that need to be adjusted. But as a casual, fun game to play with your friends,
standpoint, you probably could have said 9 out of 10. Sure,
but to
don't
go
bring
10
up
out of
Overwatch
10.
League. Don't bring up esports. That's not what IGN's reviewing. You're saying a 10 out of 10, though.
They should have put a hashtag ad on there. Like, there could be some possible lawsuit
like
coming because just a lie.
Yeah, look,
It's just wrong. You're just wrong,
anything
IGN.
that says is a 10 out of 10 is like lazy, right? Like that's why you got to put the decimal point systems in there because look, Smash Brothers was a great documentary. I still give it a 9.2 because you got to leave wiggle room. You're saying nothing is better than Overwatch right now? Okay.
Sure.
Whatever, man. Whatever. In COD, Gunless is benched on Huntsman as I think a #1 esports podcast brought this up once, but Pristini joins the roster as he is no longer with Florida because he was riding the bench there for a while. We definitely brought that up on the show that he was going to go to Chicago.
I'm a little annoyed that we didn't make that a word on the street segment. Like, because we mentioned it. We said it in passing that this was going to happen. Sure enough, it did. I've heard they have been looking pretty badass in their scrims recently with Prestini in there. And so we'll see how that translates over. Brothers being back together, T2P being together. So we'll just have to see how this plays out. I think it's going to be, Prestini is a world-class player, so it shouldn't hurt.
I don't know if this shows how much of a good dude organization Florida is or how dumb they are that they let him walk for free.
Dumb.
Either
I
they are
don't understand that.
The salt of the earth, they should be sainted, they should be right up there with Mother Teresa, or they're dumb.
Look, we're talking about on Twitter, the whole world is going crazy. I say the whole world. Thorin is losing his damn mind over TSM and conflicting interest issues there. This should be the subject of that. How on earth do you let a world champ, recent world champ, this is not somebody that won it 8-10 years ago, a recent world champ, MVP caliber player go, and you're still lacking a fifth? Like, you got nothing in return, not even financial compensation. Like, that seems a little effed up to me. Like, I don't understand it. It's great for Huntsman. Awesome for Prestini. Great for the brothers, but it is not good for Florida. I don't get it. I really don't.
I don't get it from the Florida. If I was a Florida fan, I'd be like, we let who walk away for what now? Like, nothing?
Like, how many first-round picks did we get for him? Yeah. Oh, zero. What do you mean we got zero?
Do we get a map? Do we get like a map for free the next time we play Huntsman? Like, expect a throw. Huntsman is going to throw the next time they play Florida. Expect a throw. That's the under the table agreement. Also, I loved the tweet from Hex when he was saying thanks to Gunless for just being a stand-up guy and a perfect example, because I know Gunless was just probably giving him the middle finger the whole time, considering the org didn't even tell him he was benched. So I guess props for letting him know that, he's officially benched now.
Like, he's a good dude, right?
Good dude, Hex. It's kind of been the rumor for a while, but no longer. COD Champs, the format has been announced. It will have a $2 million going to first place.
That's insane. Like, that's life-changing money right there.
Is it $2 million going to first place or $2 million for the prize pool?
No, $2 million to first place, $1 million to second, $500 to third. All the way down to like $75K for like 9th place. The surprising part, Tim, I shouldn't say the surprising. The part that I love,
$4 million pool. Okay.
0 going to 11th and 12th place. So you talk about giving players an incentive to, even if you're on the crappiest team, you should have no reason to come in here and give it your all, because you have a chance of walking out with 0 out of the 4 million that are available. So I love the way that that's set up. I love the fact that all 12 teams are going to be involved. I really like that first place is getting $2 million. Counter-Strike, step your shit up, you embarrassing #1 esport game. But $2 million to first place, man, that is going to be one hell of a COD Champs. And you know what? Like, props to all of these guys involved, Activision, all these guys that are involved in this, because I know we don't like to hype up prize pools. Dude, that gets me hyped for these guys. Like, I'm excited to see just how this is all going to play out. Like, There's just so much on the line now.
And if that doesn't excite you, CDL will also be hosting a team-based Warzone tournament. So
those are like show matches to me, right? Like, that's what the equivalent of. It's like a show match.
I'd rather it be like that. I don't want to see an all-star game or something. Like, if you're like, I always think it would be amazing if Counter-Strike for their show match at majors. I always thought it would be cool to bring back 1.6 pros and do a 1.6 match or something like that. Like,
or like a danger zone match or something.
Yeah,
danger zone
something
match
interesting.
kind of suck, actually.
But there's that.
But yeah, I think that's cool. team-based Warzone tournament. They'll have big names in it, I'm sure. And if it's just like a show match type thing, cool. I'm down with that.
Rumor is the new COD will be COD Black Ops Cold War Edition.
The Black Ops series has been great. So to go back there makes sense. I'm excited to see some footage of it. It's weird that we're already thinking of the next one, but hey, as a COD player, like that's how your mind works. You're always kind of looking at what's coming out, what's next. We're not playing it professionally, so for me, I'm excited for the next one already, and can't wait to see what they bring to the table.
Can't wait to play it for a month.
Yep.
And Parasite somehow found his way back on a professional team with UYU.
Yeah, all the players are single, so
was that the condition? It was like, hey,
that was the condition. All of the other 4 teammates had to not be in relationships. So
Parasite then asked,
you know what? Obviously he's good. Like we know he's good. It's just he's a shitty teammate, and so there's going to be people out there that are desperate because if you can get him on your team, there's a good chance you'll do well in contenders. And so we'll see how they perform. I will follow to see how they perform, honestly.
When told that his teammates are all single, Parasite then asked, "Do they have moms?" And then he signed. That's how that worked. In Valorant, JDM, former Liquid, former Envy, former Counter-Strike Pro, the JDM Lean, everyone knows that, has announced that he is moving over to Valorant. So I think everyone kind of saw that coming. I thought he was good. He's always been fine. He's a good player, but he's just, again, one of those NA players that has just played for almost every single option there is in Counter-Strike.
And JDM, he's had a legendary Counter-Strike career. Like, it really has been a legendary, from the CLG days over to what he was doing with Liquid. He was like a top 2 opper in NA. He was just never able to regain that same level of play that he once had, or people just passed him. But whatever it may be, I think this is a good opportunity for him. Like, I really do. I think he can do well here. I think a lot of these guys that we're used to hearing these names from back in the day in Counter-Strike can do well in Valorant. And so I'm excited to follow him and see what he does. Like, he took a lot of shit in this NACS scene. So cool to probably for him to also feel like he's getting a fresh start.
EG unveiled their new logo as they do another rebrand. It's better than the one. I don't understand the little fins that they have on the. If they just got rid of the fins and just.
Did you read the description?
Yes, the description does not help at all. They said that
and it's about their vision and like the directions they're going to move and what's ahead of them.
One's pointing up and one's pointing down.
And you never know how your business is going to go, Tim. It's either going to go up or it's going to tank.
We're prepared for the best, but prepare for the worst. That's just
what I will say, that this is much better than their previous rebrand.
Just get rid of the fins, and I think it would have looked clean.
Yeah, look, it's a lot better than their old
It's
logo.
a damned if you do, damned if you don't type of rebrand situation with them. That's really what it was. They were in a lose-lose situation. First off, I think I should apply for a job at EG though, because if they're looking at rebranding like every other month, I think I'm the perfect fit. Anuj can tell you, I send him a new TCR logo like once a week. Like, hey, I doodled this. What do you think of this one? Oh, I doodled that.
This is where the yin to the yang is very important, because be like, Tim, we got to use what we've had for so long.
I'd be putting up a new logo.
But Tim is like every day. So, hey, what about this? What about this?
I constantly get tired of looking at the same thing, so I always want to change something. And in just general podcast news, because that's to Tavik's point in Twitch chat, he says the EG logo is basically the old logo but updated. That's what a rebrand should be. That's what a rebrand is. Like, just freshen up. Yeah, you see that all the time in sports. Like the Lions just updated the Lions to look a little bit different. What other teams have done that recently?
Like the Cowboys are not adding a sixth point to the star.
Right.
Like it would be weird. So you kind of just tweak it just a little bit.
So there's that. In other general podcast news, Joe Rogan, host of the Joe Rogan podcast. What's the official name?
That is it.
Signs a deal with Spotify, rumored to be worth over $100 million. So in a couple months or something like that, it's soon to be exclusively the Joe Rogan Experience. That's the name of it. Will be officially on Spotify only, which is kind of crazy because in the podcast world, you don't get that. You spread it out everywhere. iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, whatever other random podcast app is out there. You just get it out there. We aren't supposed to talk about it. It is a NDA, but I will because I just, I say, fuck the man. I'm going to talk about it, Nuge. So if you're upset, I apologize. But Spotify approached us. They said, hey, they actually said 200 million. That's why Joe Rogan got so much, because it was actually supposed to be somewhat for us. And we said, listen, we appreciate our listeners so much. We want to have them have options. I don't want them to only go to Spotify. Some people prefer Google. Some people prefer iTunes. I'm not going to do that to our listeners. And I said Spotify to thanks, but no thanks.
On the real, though, Spotify, if you're interested, we're willing to talk again.
Like a Chipotle gift card.
One of those lifetime experiences to Chipotle where you can go whenever you want. Like, that sounds like a great deal.
Yeah. You just give me a year supply of Chipotle. You probably will have the deal. You'll have the handshake at that point. But that's insane. Insane for a podcast. So congratulations to Joe. I know he was really hurting for it. So it's good to see his podcast.
Yeah, but his podcast is badass, though. Like, I don't know. Do you listen to it?
Fun fact, never have.
Really?
As
wow.
a podcast
it is
guy,
like,
you think I would. Never have.
Seriously, one of the most entertaining podcasts like I've ever listened to. He does such a good job. And so at some point, I would love to have guests on the way he does. Like, he just gets who he wants when he gets them.
Become the number 1 podcast on iTunes.
I'm sorry, Tim. Who do you think you're talking to?
The number 1 esports podcast. Just because, just become the number 1 in the world. And then guests will come on at the drop of a hat. You just snap your fingers and poof, you get anyone you want.
Like, yeah, I mean, Elon Musk. Hey, you want to come on tomorrow? Sure. Okay.
Yeah. What do you want to talk about? I don't care. We'll figure it out.
Let's just smoke some weed and hang out.
Yeah, we'll shoot the shit.
Pretty much what they did.
Shoot the shit. So there you go. That's awesome. So that will do it though for the show. We will be back Sunday night to record Monday's episode, so you can always tune in on Twitch live if you're interested, and YouTube. And if you're like the one person on Mixer, you can also watch on Mixer. Actually, you can't, because I stopped even streaming on Mixer because they update their service and agreements. I swear to God, once every other day. So you constantly have to log in, and I constantly forget the password to Mixer.
So that 0.2% just went down to 0.1%.
Yeah, we just lost all of our listeners. We'll be back though, talking some esports. What? I don't know. I'm sure something will happen. Someone will say the N-word. Someone will date another boss. Something. Someone will get caught for match fixing. It's esports. It's cyclical. It just happens. It's just how it works. So that will be Sunday night for Monday's show. Everyone, thoughts and prayers for DreamHack Dallas. We'll be streaming in memoriam for it. But until next time, I'm Tim for a Nuge. We'll see ya.